Welcome to Mini Stories, where we will be listening to Reddit stories. My 29 female, recently engaged friend, 29 female, implied I wasn't engaged because my boyfriend, 31 male, doesn't actually want to get married after being together 3 years. And I'm upset because I'm scared she's right. My friend Elise, 29 female, is engaged to Rick, 32 male, and I, 29 female, am dating Luke, 31 male. Elise and Rick have been engaged for a year, together for 2, and I've been with Luke for 3 years. Fake names. So Elise and Rick had their engagement party Sunday afternoon. I was chatting with Elise, looking at her ring, and I'm not going to lie, I felt a bit of envy. Luke and I have talked about marriage, but we haven't even looked at rings yet. He says he wants to marry me, though, but I do think it's taking a long time. So I asked Elise what made Rick propose to her, like how it happened. She told me that on their first date, she told him that he had a deadline. I asked what she meant, and she said that she told Rick she wasn't going to wait around 2, 3, 4, 5 years for a man, any man, not him in particular, to marry her. She said she wants kids with the right guy but didn't want to have kids without a stable marriage and a house. Well, they have the house and now are getting married. Another one of her friends, don't know her age, but I'll call her Heidi, said she was shocked it didn't make Rick run for the hills. Elise laughed and said, well, it wasn't an ultimatum. It was a fact. If after 2 years you still can't tell if I'm the one, then I'm clearly not, and I will be moving on. Period. I told Elise that if I told Luke that, he would leave me. That's when Elise said that Luke probably isn't the right one, then, if after 3 years he'd leave me for expecting marriage. That hurt my feelings, so I told her that marriages don't always last and doesn't mean someone is the one just because they propose. She said she wasn't worried, that she and Rick were in love and knew life would not be easy, but she's prepared to make it work. She also said she knows marriage isn't for everyone, which is fine so long as your partner feels the same, but that marriage is a value of hers, and she wasn't going to waste time with someone who so clearly didn't have the same values of her. That's when Heidi asked me what my problem was. I told her I didn't have a problem, just stating a fact. Then Heidi asked how long I had been with Luke. I said 3 years, and she asked if I wanted to get married. I said yes, and when she asked what about Luke, I just excused myself to the restroom. Not much else happened at the party, but when Luke and I left, I told him about the conversation. Luke laughed and called Elise ridiculous. I asked what he meant and he said, verbatim, only desperate and crazy women have a policy like that. Let it happen when it feels right. So I asked him if he wanted to marry me, to which he said of course, and I asked then why weren't we engaged when we've been together longer? He said he wasn't ready yet and our relationship was fine the way it was. I asked how long did he have to wait to know and he shrugged and said, does it matter? We're together and that's what is important. The conversation paused for a minute and then Luke asked me not to be like Elise. He said that he doesn't like being forced to do something. I asked him if Rick felt that way, he's good friends with Rick. He admitted that Rick never said he felt forced and that he had been planning to propose to Elise 6 months after they met, but waited a bit to make sure he wasn't just jumping into something. I asked Luke if it would be okay for me to look at rings. He said I could, but to not get my heart set on anything because he wasn't ready, and he said even if he wasn't willing to spend more than $1,500 on an engagement ring. Elise's ring obviously cost more than that. I never asked her how much it was, but center diamond is 2 carats, and the rest of the band is covered in diamonds. I remember she was asked once how much it was. She wouldn't answer, but said that Rick bought a ring he wanted her to love and did not care about the price. He found the ring she'd like, looked at the price, and saved money to purchase it debt-free. I didn't mention that to Luke, but her telling me that came back when Luke said he was only willing to spend $1,500 on a ring I'm not even allowed to really look for. I'm not really sure why, but the conversation with Luke and Elise has made me very sad. I'm slightly angry at Elise for her implications, but mostly I'm disappointed in Luke based on our conversation Sunday. He hasn't mentioned it since this weekend, but it's all I can think about. Did Elise go about it the right way? Is Luke wasting my time? I don't know, both of those conversations Sunday have me feeling like something is off. Update. So I read all of the comments, but by the time I was able to get back on, my thread was locked. I didn't think it was going to take off like that. But I didn't ignore it, so here's the update. It starts at it anyway. First, some info. Elise and Rick will have been together 3.5 years by the time they get married. I also think I gave the wrong impression of their relationship. Elise didn't demand a proposal from Rick, and she was surprised when it came. They honestly sound like they just had a whirlwind romance. She also didn't say she had to be married by the end of 2 years, but that you should know if you want to marry her by the end of 2 years and be ready to be engaged so long as financially, work-wise, and in personal life everything is okay. They were together for a year and a couple months before he proposed. He did not propose at 6 months. He told Luke he knew she was the one at 6 months and started looking for rings then, but they got engaged later than that. Also, I don't care how much Elise's ring cost or how big it is. I didn't include that part because I was being petty. I was annoying because Luke basically told me I don't get a say in what I'd be wearing. He developed the budget on his own without talking to me about it, and he knows next to nothing of jewelry and has never asked me what I like. I always thought he'd do what Rick and other mutual friends did, which is look together, develop the budget together, and then he picks what he thinks I would like. Rick didn't have the money for Elise's ring, his own words, so he made a financially sound decision to save up for a ring he knew she'd like, but wouldn't break their bank either. I figured Luke was going to do the same thing, but apparently he had no intentions of doing so. Lastly, someone mentioned that Rick doesn't have as much going on as Luke does, which isn't true. I don't know what Rick actually does, but he works for a major company in the financial department. He's not an accountant, but he basically supervises all money coming and going, sort of like a treasurer. Elise is a school guidance counselor. So both are very educated, no kids outside of their relationship, and are doing okay. Anyway, with me and Luke, he is very much go with the flow. More than I thought, actually. The reason I didn't reply to my first thread is because I decided to talk to Luke first. Long story short, we broke up. Several comments said I needed to communicate what I wanted clearly to Luke, so I took an hour to write out what I really wanted in the next couple of years, and then told Luke the night I posted the first thread. I told him that after 3 years, we should be seriously considering the next step. I told him I wanted kids, and with my age, I'm scared of health problems and complications, especially with COVID overtaking the hospitals around us. I told him that before we buy a house, we were looking, that I want to at least be engaged like Elise and Rick were. That's not a comparison per se, but I reflected on this and I think buying a house with a boyfriend who can't tell me when he wants to be engaged isn't very smart. Elise and Rick were engaged when they bought their house, so were several of our married friends, and I realized that's the minimum stage in our relationship I want to be in before purchasing a home. Luke's reaction was not pleasant. He told me he felt like I was trapping him in a corner and demanding a ring when I wasn't. I told him I wanted a plan and to see if we were on the same page, but I wasn't expecting a ring tomorrow or anything, just over the next year or so. He told me he'll propose when he's ready, and me bringing it up over and over again is making him not want to do it because he thinks I just want a ring, but I don't. I want a family, but I don't want to be one of those women who has a kid with a man who doesn't actually want the same things I do. I told him that he doesn't seem like he wants to get married, and that's when he said it. Luke told me he wants to get married, but admitted he didn't know anymore if he wanted to marry me in particularly. When I asked why, he said he doesn't think I have enough ambition. Luke wants to get a promotion at his job, he works in marketing, he's going to school for his master's, and he's into self-improvement like going to the gym and eating healthier and mental health books. He said he felt like I just wanted a marriage and kids, and then I would be a SAH mom, which he doesn't want me to do. He wants me to work, but I work as a secretary for psychology service. Luke makes almost 3x as much as I do. And I don't want to go back to school. I hated it the first time, and I can't afford to do it again even if I wanted to. Plus, I love my job. Great pay, great benefits, and my bosses and coworkers are really cool. But he told me that was an excuse, and he doesn't want to be tied to someone who is, as he said, okay, with just being okay, and that he wants more than that out of life. I was angry because I feel like I've asked this of him before, and he always said he wants to marry me. I did tell him before I wanted to be a stay-at-home if financially we could afford it, and I guess he didn't want me to be. So, I told him I was done with the conversation and have been staying at a friend's house. I've messaged him a couple times to try and talk to him since, but he only responds saying he thinks we are on different pages and the relationship needs to be done so we can find what we want. I'm really sad and upset and feel like I wasted my time and that Elise was right. Luke took our relationship status off of Facebook and a ton of people have been asking what happened. His responses to my text messages also just seem so cold. From what I've heard from mutual friends, he sounds like he's doing okay, and went out Friday night, New Year's Eve, with some friends to a bar. No, I have not talked to Elise though she did reach out. But that's what happened. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, like, comment, share, and subscribe.